You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 27th of October, 2025 on Monocle Radio. Hello there, and a very warm welcome to The Briefing, coming to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Emma Nelson, and coming up on today's programme, as the ASEAN Summit wraps up, I'll be joined live from Bangkok by our Asia editor James Chambers for an overview of the highlights. James, what are you bringing us?
Well, it's a day after the Trump-backed peace deal between Thailand and Cambodia, so I'll be coming on later to see what peace actually looks like on the ground.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Also ahead, the government shutdown in the US approaches a fifth week. We'll hear more about this and a wider roundup of the latest headlines from the US. Plus,
anime really treats its audience as an intelligent participant in the storytelling process.
We hear how Demon Slayers, the Japanese anime blockbuster, has enjoyed worldwide success. That's all coming up right here on The Briefing with me, Emma Nelson. So let's hear straight away a roundup of the main events from this year's ASEAN Summit at the end of day 2 of 3. James Chambers is our Asia editor, and he joins us from Bangkok for the Monocle View. At the time, I think it's just gone 1900. Good evening, James. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Emma.
So from your outpost in Thailand, watching what's happening in Malaysia, Thailand very much a part of this year's event.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it was one of the big headlines yesterday. The agreement or the peace accord between Thailand and Cambodia, which was signed, on stage with Donald Trump, present, as he kind of, I guess, makes his pitch for the next year's Nobel Peace Prize. So that is a huge talking point, and it's got a lot of attention on the ASEAN Summit, because it was something that was kind of dangled in front of Donald Trump to come and attend the event, because US presidents don't always come. I mean, Joe Biden, his attendance was patchy. And so to have Donald Trump there at the ASEAN Summit is a big thing for the region. And so that's a big plus that everyone's talking about it. But when it comes to this peace deal, I guess there's a lot of question marks about what it actually entails and whether it is actually peace.
Well, indeed, if you could possibly explain that for us, because the rhetoric from Donald Trump was twofold. A, that this was a genuine peace deal between Cambodia and Thailand, and B, that he was responsible for it. So just explain to us a little bit more about what might actually be part of this agreement.
Yes, I think you couldn't get more mentions of peace in the photo op. I think on the stage was delivering peace in the background. So I guess it goes. I mean, it's the same thing that's happening in Gaza. This the differentiation between a ceasefire and a peace. Like, what is peace, or what is a peace deal? So I mean, to go back to this 5-day war between the Cambodia and Thailand. It's a border war. It happened in July, and it's something that's been going on for over a century. They haven't agreed the border lines, since Cambodia was ruled by the French, and it's just something that they've kind of they've kicked down the road, and they've managed to live side by side. And then, when it serves one of the governments in either country, they kind of get the nationalists all riled up about it, and sometimes there's a little war. This happened again, and on this occasion, to give Donald Trump his dues, he did knock some heads together and get the guns to stop. He didn't have to do it, but he fired off a tweet and basically said, "If you guys don't stop fighting, I'm going to, punish you with higher tariffs." And that did get their attention, and it did bring the fighting to a stop. So the guy does deserve a lot of credit for that. But if you look at what was signed yesterday, it was basically an agreement that reflected that the deal that was done in July. There was no discussion on the border and how a peace could actually be achieved. And the Thai side refused to call it a peace deal. The best they will do is call it a pathway to peace, which is probably quite accurate, because at the moment, there's still troops and soldiers on the border. There's still a lot of things that haven't been agreed between the two sides. So it's not a peace, but it's having an effect. The Thai Prime Minister said last night that the Cambodians have started withdrawing their soldiers from the border, and the Thais will do the same. So this has had an impact.
Tell us other headlines from ASEAN after Donald Trump departed late on Sunday to head to Japan, leaving the rest of the ASEAN summit. It was a very significant meeting, not just because of the admission of Timor-Leste into the group, but also the fact that they are supposed to, and they always talk about more economic integration and moving closely together. But Donald Trump had just left a whirlwind of individual negotiations, hadn't he?
Yes, he creates a mess and then comes swooping in, trying to claim credit for trying to clean it up. So he was doling out tariffs on all of these countries, and they were kind of scrambling because they rely so much on exporting to the US. But what this whole tariff, I guess, war on the world that Trump kicked off has done is concentrate people's minds on what they have to do to kind of insulate themselves more from this in the future. And the ASEAN region is a bit like the EU, although not nearly as close, and the institutions aren't nearly as integrated. And so this has focused their attention on intra-trade between all of these 10, now 11 nations, so that they are less reliant on exporting to places like the US, who can use it as a weapon. So one of the agreements they focused on is trying to reduce all the tariffs and non-tariff barriers between internally in the region, and so that has got that's focused attention here. And it is worth saying that Trump wasn't the only international leader present. ASEAN does one of its powers is its convening power. It says it can draw the world to come to this region and sit down around a table. And we had, there was the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, who was there. He was meeting with the Premier from China, Li Tian. They had some important meetings about, rare earths and the South China Sea. And as you said, Timor-Leste was admitted, and so the ASEAN family is now up to 11. So, for a bloc that has been criticized for so long for being a bit irrelevant, this has been a bit of a blockbuster summit. And a lot of the credit must go to the host, Malaysia. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has been having a bit of a stormer on the world front, and he'll feel very pleased with how this one has gone.
And finally, James, it's the end of the day for you, but what's on the list of to-do things in the Bangkok bureau tomorrow?
Well, Bangkok is in a period of mourning at the moment. The Queen Mother passed away on Friday, so it's a bit of a more somber time in Bangkok. It's been quite fascinating to see this very colourful city turn a bit more monochrome over the last few days. Flags are at half-mast. Almost everybody is wearing black. Websites have all gone monochrome. Corporate apps. And so there's going to be a bit less colour, less intensity, a bit more somber mood in Bangkok for a few weeks at least. So we'll be looking at that closely. James Chambers in Bangkok, thank you so much for joining us on the line. Now, here's Anita Riotto with the day's other news headlines on the briefing.
Thanks, Emma. Argentine President Javier Milei has achieved a decisive victory in the country's midterm legislative elections. The win secures a mandate to continue his economic overhaul despite public discontent over severe austerity measures. Voter turnout in the election was around 68%, the lowest in more than a decade. Russian air defenses have shot down dozens of Ukrainian drones heading to Moscow. 2 of Moscow's 4 airports were closed briefly for safety reasons. In total, 193 drones were shot down by Russia, and there were no reports of major damage in the capital. Indonesia has announced plans to purchase 42 Chinese J-10 fighter jets for $9 billion. The deal also includes missile boats and anti-ship missiles from Beijing. The move marks the latest element of President Prabowo Subianto's military buildup, with $4 billion budgeted for new equipment this year alone. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Emma.
Thank you very much indeed, Anita Riotta. Now, with the time at 10 minutes past midday here in London, I'm joined in the studio by Chris Cermak, Monocle's senior news editor. Good morning, Chris. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We have reached the afternoon.
Just about by a scant 10 minutes, but it is important. You're here with all the headlines from the United States, and just before we came on air, we were talking about the fact that if a government shutdown had been in effect for the best part of 4 weeks, it would be a headline that dominated absolutely everything for a long time in a past life. Similarly, if American warships decided to station themselves in the waters just off Venezuela, that would be front page news as well. But because of the 9 months of the Trump narrative, we are now just saying, oh, and another thing has happened.
Well, and frankly, there would be many other stories we could also talk about, Emma,
Yes.
when I was trying to pick for a U.S. news roundup that we're not even going to mention today. I'll just throw out there, for example, that the U.S. Justice Department says it will monitor elections in California and New York, which is and New Jersey, which is raising heckles there. But let's not talk about that because we've got more important
Yes.
things. We're going to start with the U.S.
Sorry,
government.
California. Sorry, New Jersey. We just need to apologise if you're listening. We'll come to you another day, I promise. But
Yes,
Chris
we
has got
will.
to deal with the government shutdown first.
We have to start with the government shutdown because it is getting serious, right? As you said, we are about to enter the 5th week of the shutdown. On Sunday, 8,000 flights faced delays. 22 airports over the weekend reported facing shortages of air traffic controllers. And this is crucial, Emma, because this is kind of what stopped the shutdown last time Donald Trump was in office back in his first term. Because when air traffic controllers are not coming to work, when the safety of American travelers is at risk, that was the thing that finally brought people together. That said, in this case, there is no current end in sight, despite these reports of air traffic controllers.
And do we get the impression that there is any impetus to try to bring a resolution to this?
There
Because
are
usually
lots of impetuses, yes. So there's a lot of discussions going. Currently, you could argue getting sidetracked in a way, but they're trying to do a sort of end the shutdown light version, which would be pay the federal workers that are currently being forced to work. So that is kind of what's currently been in discussion. But even that so far has been too much. There's been various proposals for that, and Democrats and Republicans can't agree on exactly how to do that. Do you pay all the federal workers currently? Do you only pay some of them and allow Trump then to decide which federal workers get to keep working, etc.? So that's been rolling on in the background and has failed. And that's been, stopped the rest of this from getting resolved. So there's a question of are they going to reach some kind of little deal, or are they going to finally just end the shutdown itself properly?
Just looking around when you're trying to do a little bit of reading into this, and you realise that in 15 days' time, the US Treasury has said there's going to be no money for the military to pay soldiers and what have you.
There's no money for the military either. Part of the money for the military so far has come out of other appropriations from the Pentagon for R&D, for example. But, moving the pot around is something you can also only do for so long.
Okay, let's move on to the Venezuela story. It is enormous. The fact that more warships have been sent to Venezuela, or the Venezuelans are saying that they are getting absolutely too close for comfort now.
Not only warships. What's interesting over the weekend was a U.S. carrier strike group. The USS Gerald R. Ford was moved to Latin America, is being moved. This is interesting for a number of reasons. I mean, this is a massive carrier strike group adding to what's already there. 8 warships, F-35 jet fighters, bombers, surveillance planes, Ghost Riders, Reaper drones. Everything is there. This carrier strike group is such a sort of mobile command unit. It would allow the US to strike inside Venezuela if they wanted to. And there are reports at this point that Donald Trump is considering that, but he hasn't yet given approval for strikes to be carried out inside Venezuela. But it's also important, Emma, because it shows how the priorities have shifted. This is the first time in decades, Emma, that there is no carrier strike group in Europe or the Middle East. This was the last one that was there, and it is now being moved to Latin America because this is where Donald Trump's focus at the moment is.
And what can, Venezuela is obviously saying you've got to stop this, but there is very little that many countries, unless they sort of have a concerted effort, but there just seems to be nothing that can be done about this.
Well, short of Nicolas Maduro leaving the country, because you are seeing those voices, even though the U.S. pretends and says this is not about regime change. You have seen some U.S. senators, including Rick Scott of Florida, basically telling Nicolas Maduro to leave at this point. That's the way that this gets resolved. So that's what's fascinating. Venezuela itself has, of course, just said we want peace and stop the saber rattling. They've also tried to target their neighbors because Trinidad and Tobago is hosting one of these U.S. warships, and Venezuela has said that is obviously inappropriate for a neighbor. Trinidad, of course, finds itself in a difficult position. Are they going to say no to the U.S. wanting to dock on their shores? No, they're not. But of course, they also want to have somewhat friendly relations with their neighbor.
Chris Cermak, Monocle Senior News Editor, thank you so much for joining me in the studio. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Now, the Japanese animated film Demon Slayer Infinity Castle has become a global box office hit. The show has earned almost $130 million in North America, making it the highest grossing international film released in the region and currently ranking 6th worldwide this year. Well, to learn more about the success, Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi spoke to Mitchell Bagger, who's head of theatrical and distribution at Crunchyroll, the company behind the film's North American distribution and one of the world's leading global anime streaming platforms.
The final battle. These words echo in my mind.
So we have had tremendous success globally. As you said, in North America, we opened to $70 million our opening weekend. We're up over $125 million now at the box office. So we're very excited. It is the highest grossing anime film of all time in North America. And I'll tell you, for myself personally, as a professional, it's one of the most exciting things that I've had a privilege to work on. It's really special to have a piece of content and a storyline and a IP like Demon Slayer that's so beloved by so many people around the world. And for us to have the privilege of bringing that to movie audiences has just been amazing.
As a Japanese person, I'm really surprised to see how popular Japanese anime has become in North America recently. So in your view, what do you think makes Japanese anime films like this one so attractive to people around the world?
It's a great question that we get all the time. Anime has, to your point, and not just North America, I think worldwide, has really resonated, especially with a younger audience. We look at the Gen Zs, the Gen Ys, the Gen Alphas. It's really become part of how they consume media and how they express themselves. So I think a lot of the appeal is the character, the storytelling, some of the messages. I think there's a fascination with Japanese culture as well. There's so much of Japanese culture is infused into anime. I think one of the themes that we often see in anime that resonates is this idea of winning or losing together. It's working as a team and that collective success. It's not about a singular hero. It's about what do we do as a team to come together to support each other and overcome an obstacle or complete a quest or whatever that happens to be. I think that really resonates with the younger generation. That's a story that they want to see. I think anime really treats its audience as an intelligent participant in the storytelling process. So it's a multitude of factors, but it has really become intrinsic in this younger generation on how they express themselves, how they relate to each other, and that's driving a ton of the popularity.
So let's talk about marketing and promotion. So what kind of strategy or activities were most effective in North America?
We are very fortunate in that coming into this film, we knew that we had a fan base who loved the film. So we knew from the series that we had on the streaming service that we had this really rabid fan base. So a lot of our focus was on making sure that that fan base knew the movie's coming, this is what it's about, this is when you can see it. That is something that we really focused on. We had a lot of things going on. We had influencers out there. We had some screenings around the world. We had a giveaway last weekend of some art cards in the theater. We had some really cool popcorn buckets. So we did all the normal things that you would do. I think what was really special about this one is instead of us having to go find an audience and figure out, okay, who was going to want to see this movie, we already knew who that fan base was. So it's really just about getting them hyped up for, okay, it's coming on September 12th. Go see it, go get your tickets. So that's what we focused on, and we were very successful in it.
I think many Japanese Demon Slayer fans watch this movie many, many times and buy lots of related merchandise. So I think the strong character-based fandom plays a big role in its success in Japan. Is it the same in North America as well?
It is, yes. So we absolutely have seen fans going to see this multiple times. You go on social media and you'll see people posting, here's my 8 tickets that I got to go see Demon Slayer 8 times. And it's a couple of things. One, I think the movie itself, it's a somewhat long film. It's like 2.5 hours long. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of storylines, a lot of layers. So it's very rewatchable. I think the other thing is being able to see it in the multiple formats that we took it out in. Seeing it in IMAX is an amazing experience. Seeing it on 4DX or a premium large format, or seeing it with motion chairs, all those things, it just adds to the experience. There's so many different ways to experience the film. I think fans are also taking advantage of each of those opportunities. And then you bring up the merchandise. It's critically important. What I love about anime fans is it's a very deep fandom. It's not just, I'm going to go see the film, or I'm just going to watch it, at home at some point, watch the show streaming. Once they fall in love with these characters, they fall in love with the character, and they want to show that to everyone. So they want to express. I love that about it, because they're always trying to pull people in and share this wonderful thing that they found. And the merchandise and all those kind of things are great ways to spark conversation with folks. And get out there. So yes, we see exactly the same thing. It is a multi-layered fandom that we see across the world. And what we try to do at Crunchyroll is make sure, as a fan, once you fall in love with this piece of content, everywhere that you want to then come intersect with it, again, whether it's in the theater, at a convention, at a music festival, in a retail store, we want to be there with a Crunchyroll feeling authentic experience to allow you to express your fandom for this thing that you love.
Thank you very much, Michelle. For Monocle in Tokyo, I'm Ryuma Takahashi.
Thank you, Ryuma. He was talking to Mitchell Berger, head of theatrical and distribution at Crunchyroll in Tokyo. That's all the time we have for today's edition of The Briefing. The warmest of thanks to all my guests and to the producer, Anita Riotta, and our studio manager, Lily Austin. The Briefing's back at the same time tomorrow, but for now, from me, Emma Nelson, goodbye. Thank you very much for listening.